The divorce papers landed on my kitchen counter with a soft thud that somehow felt louder than a gunshot. Graham stood there in his wrinkled pajamas, his usually gentle eyes cold as winter steel, while I clutched my coffee mug with trembling hands. Just 12 hours earlier, I'd been laughing with my sister about how boring my husband was, joking about my little office romance like it was some harmless sitcom plot. Now those same jokes felt like they were choking me. "Sign them, Minty," Graham said quietly. "I know about Eliot." 3 months earlier, I'd convinced myself I was being generous by giving our marriage another chance. Graham had been so pathetically grateful when I announced my decision over breakfast, his face lighting up like a kid on Christmas morning. It made me feel powerful, important, like I held all the cards. "I've been thinking about us," I'd said, stirring my yogurt with deliberate slowness. "Maybe we can work things out, but I need space to figure myself out, okay?" Graham had nodded eagerly, his dark hair falling across his forehead in that boyish way that used to charm me. "Whatever you need, Minty. I just want our family to stay together." Our 7-year-old daughter Sadie had looked up from her cereal, confusion flickering across her small face. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, sweetheart," I'd lied smoothly. "Mommy just needs to focus on her career right now." The truth was messier. I'd been feeling suffocated by our suburban routine. The same conversations, the same weekend grocery runs, the same predictable intimacy. Graham worked as an accountant at a small firm, coming home every evening at 6:15 sharp with stories about tax codes and client meetings that made my eyes glaze over. Meanwhile, I'd started a new position in HR at a marketing company, surrounded by creative, dynamic people who made me feel alive again. That's where I'd reconnected with Eliot. Eliot Radner had been my college friend, someone I'd always found intriguing but never pursued seriously. When he joined our company as a senior marketing director, those old feelings came rushing back. He was everything Graham wasn't. Spontaneous, charming, always ready with a witty comment or an impromptu lunch invitation. "You seem different," Graham observed one evening, watching me check my phone for the 3rd time during dinner. "Happier?" I felt a flutter of guilt, quickly suppressed. "I told you I'm just enjoying my new job. Is that a crime?" "Of course not. I'm glad you're finding fulfillment." His sincerity made the guilt worse, so I pushed back. "You know, Graham, maybe if you showed a little more interest in growing as a person, you'd understand what I'm going through." He blinked, hurt flashing across his features. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Forget it." I turned back to my phone, where Eliot had sent a funny meme about office life. His messages always made me smile, in ways Graham's earnest texts about picking up milk never could. That night, as Graham slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and told myself I deserved this excitement. I'd been a good wife for 8 years, a devoted mother, a responsible adult. Wasn't I entitled to feel special? To have someone appreciate my wit and intelligence? The next morning, I found Graham's mother Judith in my kitchen, having let herself in with the spare key. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who'd never quite warmed to me, though she'd always been civil. "Minty, dear," she said, not looking up from the coffee she was brewing. "I wanted to talk to you about Graham." "What about him?" I kept my voice light, though my stomach tightened. "He seems stressed lately. Distracted, I'm worried about him." "He's fine, Judith, we're fine." She turned then, fixing me with that penetrating stare. "Are you? Because my son has been calling me at odd hours, asking vague questions about relationships and trust. That's not like him." I forced a laugh. You know how Graham overthinks everything. Probably just work stress. Judith didn't look convinced. "Well, I hope you're right. It would be such a shame if anything happened to disrupt Sadie's stability." The implied threat was clear. I bristled but kept my expression neutral. "Sadie is our priority, always." After Judith left, I felt rattled. Was Graham suspicious? I'd been careful, hadn't I? My lunches with Eliot were innocent enough, just two old friends catching up. The fact that I felt more alive during those stolen hours, that I'd started buying new clothes and wearing perfume to work, that I'd created a separate Instagram account to follow Eliot's posts. None of that meant anything concrete. That evening, Graham surprised me by suggesting we go out for dinner, just the two of us. "Sadie can stay with Mom," he said. "We haven't had a proper date in months." I should have been pleased, but instead I felt trapped. "I'm pretty tired, Graham. Rain check?" "Oh, okay." The disappointment in his voice made me defensive. "It's not personal. I've just been working really hard lately, staying late to prove myself. You understand, right?" "Of course. I'm proud of you for being so dedicated." His unwavering support should have made me feel loved. Instead, it made me feel guilty, which made me angry at him for making me feel guilty. The emotional logic was twisted, but it felt real in the moment. Later that night, I was in the bathroom getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed, with a text from an unknown number. "Hope you had a good day. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. E." My heart stopped. Eliot had gotten a new phone and forgotten I'd told Graham I didn't know anyone with that number. I quickly deleted the message, but as I turned around, I saw Graham standing in the doorway. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You look pale." "Just tired," I managed. "Long day." He nodded, but I caught him glancing at my phone. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the screen was still lit up, though the message was gone. Had he seen it? His expression gave nothing away. As we lay in bed that night, Graham's breathing seemed too controlled, too deliberate. I had the unsettling feeling that he was lying awake just as I was, both of us pretending to sleep while our minds raced with secrets and suspicions. The following Saturday, I orchestrated what I thought would be a perfect performance. Our usual group was meeting for brunch at Riverside Cafe. My sister Jenna, her boyfriend Marcus, my father George, Graham's best friend Mike, and a few other couples from our social circle. I'd spent extra time on my appearance that morning, choosing a flattering sundress and taking care with my makeup. Graham had noticed, complimenting me with genuine warmth that made my stomach twist with guilt. "You look beautiful, Minty, like when we first started dating." I'd forced a smile and kissed his cheek, tasting the bitterness of my own deception. At the cafe, I positioned myself as the center of attention, regaling everyone with amusing stories from my new job. The conversation was flowing perfectly until someone asked about our recent anniversary. "Oh, Graham got me the most practical gift," I said with a laugh. "A new vacuum cleaner. Very romantic, right?" Graham shifted uncomfortably beside me. "You said you wanted a good one for the house." "I'm just teasing," I said, but my tone had an edge. Graham's always been more practical than romantic. Remember our honeymoon? He brought a guidebook and planned every single day down to the minute. A few people chuckled, but I caught Mike frowning. Graham's face was flushed with embarrassment. "I thought you liked having everything organized," Graham said quietly. "Oh, I do. It's very... you." I patted his arm condescendingly. "Some women get spontaneous weekend getaways. I get spreadsheets." Jenna jumped in, sensing an opportunity. "That's so typical, isn't it? Men think they're being helpful when they're really just sucking the fun out of everything." My father George laughed. "Come on, Graham. Where's your sense of adventure? Take my daughter somewhere exciting for once." Graham's jaw tightened. "I've suggested trips. Minty always says she's too busy with work." "Because you suggest places like historical museums and bed and breakfasts in Vermont," I shot back. "When was the last time you did something impulsive? Something that wasn't color-coded and scheduled?" The table fell silent. I realized I'd gone too far, but my pride wouldn't let me back down. Instead, I doubled down. "I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying it would be nice if my husband occasionally surprised me, maybe took me somewhere I actually wanted to go." Graham stood up abruptly. "I need some air." As he walked away, I felt a mix of triumph and unease. I'd successfully positioned myself as the long-suffering wife, but the look in Mike's eyes suggested I'd lost at least one ally. "That was harsh, Minty," Mike said once Graham was out of earshot. "I'm just being honest. Graham knows I love him, but that doesn't mean I can't want more excitement in our marriage. Maybe try talking to him privately instead of humiliating him in public," Mike replied coolly. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Eliot. "Thinking about our conversation yesterday. You deserve so much better than boring suburban life. Coffee later?" The timing was perfect. Here was someone who understood me, who saw my worth. I quickly typed back, "Yes, definitely." When Graham returned, he was quiet for the rest of the meal. I tried to lighten the mood with more stories, but the damage was done. As we prepared to leave, Jenna pulled me aside. "You're playing with fire," she whispered. "But honestly, good for you. You've been settling for too long." Her words felt like validation, drowning out the small voice in my head that whispered I was making a terrible mistake. That evening, Graham and I barely spoke. He spent time reading to Sadie while I caught up on work emails, or pretended to. Really, I was texting with Eliot, who was full of sympathy and understanding. "You're too vibrant to be dimmed by someone who doesn't appreciate you," he wrote. "You deserve to feel alive." It was exactly what I wanted to hear, what I needed to hear. Graham's quiet disappointment felt like judgment, while Eliot's attention felt like freedom. When Graham finally came to bed, he lay on his side with his back to me. I could feel the distance between us like a physical barrier. "Graham," I said softly, "are you upset about earlier? I'm trying to understand why you needed to make me look foolish in front of our friends." His calm tone was somehow worse than if he'd been angry. "I wasn't trying to make you look foolish. I was just expressing frustration." "About what? About me?" I could have apologized then, could have been honest about my feelings, about the growing distance between us, about Eliot. Instead, I chose the coward's path. About us, about feeling like we're just going through the motions. "So talk to me about it. Don't embarrass me in public. You're being too sensitive. Everyone was just having fun." "No, Minty, you were having fun. At my expense." I felt my defenses rising. "Fine. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. But maybe if you put a little more effort into our relationship, I wouldn't feel so frustrated." Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very soft. "I see." Something in his tone made my chest tighten, but I pushed the feeling away. I was the one being wronged here, wasn't I? I was the one stuck in a passionless marriage with a man who thought excitement meant trying a new restaurant. As Graham's breathing eventually evened out in sleep, I stared at the ceiling and crafted elaborate justifications for what I was planning to do. The affair began in earnest the following week. What started as innocent coffee dates evolved into long lunches, then after-work drinks, then stolen kisses in empty conference rooms. Eliot made me feel like the most fascinating woman in the world, hanging on my every word and making me laugh until my sides ached. "You're incredible," he whispered one afternoon as we sat in his car in a parking garage downtown. "How did Graham get so lucky?" "Sometimes I wonder if he even realizes what he has," I replied, leaning into Eliot's touch. "His loss could be my gain," Eliot said, his hand trailing along my arm. The thrill of those words was intoxicating. Here was a successful, attractive man who wanted me, really wanted me. Not the comfortable, taken-for-granted love Graham offered, but passionate desire. Of course, maintaining the deception required increasingly elaborate lies. I started claiming to work late several nights a week, telling Graham I was pursuing a promotion that required extra dedication. "I'm proud of you for being so ambitious," Graham said one evening, as I prepared to leave for another fictional work session. "Just don't burn yourself out." His trust made me feel sick and powerful at the same time. "I'll be careful. Don't wait up. I'll keep dinner warm just in case." Instead of dinner with my husband, I spent the evening at an upscale wine bar with Eliot, talking about books and travel, and all the experiences I felt I was missing. He listened with an intensity Graham had never shown, asking thoughtful questions and sharing his own dreams of adventure. "We should go to Italy together someday," Eliot said, his fingers intertwined with mine across the small table. "I know this little village in Tuscany." "That sounds amazing," I breathed, even though the practical part of my mind knew it was fantasy. When I got home that night, Graham was asleep on the couch with a book open on his chest. I felt a pang of something, guilt, regret, but quickly suppressed it. This was his choice, wasn't it? If he wanted to be boring and predictable, that was his decision. The next morning, Sadie asked why Daddy had slept on the couch. "He was just reading late," I explained, though I wasn't sure why he hadn't come to bed. "Is Daddy sad?" she pressed, her 7-year-old intuition picking up on tensions I thought we'd hidden. "Why would you think that?" "He looks sad sometimes, like when you're not here." Her words hit harder than I expected. "Daddy's fine, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just have things on their minds." But as I watched Graham that morning, I realized Sadie was right. There was a heaviness to his movements, a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. For a moment, I considered ending things with Eliot, coming clean, trying to rebuild what Graham and I had. Then my phone buzzed with a message from Eliot. "Can't stop thinking about you. Lunch today?" The guilt evaporated, replaced by anticipation. Graham's sadness was his problem to solve. I deserved happiness too. At work, I was walking on air. Eliot and I had developed a system of meaningful glances and subtle touches that made every day feel charged with electricity. My productivity actually improved. I was more energetic, more creative, more engaged with everything. "You seem really happy lately," my colleague Sarah observed during a break. "New skincare routine?" I laughed. "Something like that." But our discretion wasn't as perfect as I'd thought. During one particularly flirtatious lunch, I spotted Janet from accounting at a nearby table. She gave me a knowing look that made my stomach drop, but I told myself I was being paranoid. That evening, Graham surprised me with flowers and a suggestion that we get a babysitter and go dancing. Dancing? I couldn't hide my surprise. Graham hated dancing. I know it's not usually my thing, but I thought maybe we could try something new. The gesture should have melted my heart. Instead, it felt like pressure, like he was trying to compete with something he didn't even know existed. "That's sweet, Graham, but I'm exhausted. This promotion track is really demanding." "Right, of course." His face fell. "Maybe next weekend?" "Maybe." But next weekend, I had plans to meet Eliot at an art gallery opening. I'd already crafted the excuse, a mandatory work networking event. As the weeks passed, my lies became more elaborate, and my resentment toward Graham grew. Why couldn't he just accept that I needed space? Why did he keep trying so hard, making me feel guilty for wanting something more? The breaking point came when Graham's mother Judith stopped by unexpectedly on a Thursday evening. I was getting ready to leave for another fake work event when she arrived. "Minty, dear, you look lovely. Going somewhere special?" "Just a work thing," I said, checking my reflection one more time. "You certainly have a lot of work events lately." Something in her tone made me defensive. "It's a demanding job, Judith. Not everyone can coast by doing the minimum." Her eyebrows rose. "I wasn't criticizing, dear, just observing that you seem to be out quite often in the evenings." "Well, some of us have ambitions beyond suburban housewife." The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but I didn't take them back. Judith's expression hardened. "I see. Well, I hope your ambitions include taking care of your family." "Of course they do. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Sadie asked me last week if you still live here because she hardly sees you anymore." The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. I had been absent more than usual, but it wasn't like I was neglecting my daughter. "That's ridiculous. I see Sadie every day." "For a few minutes in the morning before school, perhaps. But when was the last time you helped with her homework?" or read her a bedtime story. Graham handles those things. We divide responsibilities. How convenient for you. I was about to respond when Graham appeared in the doorway, clearly having heard at least part of the conversation. Mum, please, Minty's working hard for all of us. His defense of me made the guilt worse, which made me angrier. I don't need defending, Graham. Your mother is entitled to her opinions, even when they're wrong. I left before either of them could respond, my hands shaking as I drove to meet Eliot. But even his sympathy and attention couldn't fully erase the echo of Judith's words. That night, I came home to find Graham waiting up for me in the kitchen. We need to talk, he said quietly. My heart hammered. About what? About us, about what's happening to our marriage. I forced myself to stay calm. What do you mean? Minty, you're never here anymore. When you are here, you're distant. Sadie's starting to notice, and frankly, so am I. I told you I'm working toward a promotion. This is temporary. Is it? Because it feels like you're pulling away from us, from me. The concern in his voice almost broke my resolve. Almost. You're being paranoid, Graham. Just because I have a life outside this house doesn't mean I'm pulling away. A life that doesn't include your husband or daughter. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you seemed happy to see me? I couldn't answer that, so I went on the attack instead. Maybe if you were more interesting to talk to, I'd be more engaged. Maybe if you ever wanted to do anything besides watch TV and discuss your day at the office, I'd be more excited to come home. Graham flinched as if I'd slapped him. I see. I don't think you do see. I think you want me to be satisfied with this small, predictable life, and I'm not. I want more. More of what? More everything. More excitement, more passion, more life. And you can't have that with me? The question hung between us, loaded with years of shared history and the potential for honesty. I could have said yes. I could have told him about Eliot. I could have asked for the divorce I was too cowardly to request. Instead, I said, I don't know. Graham nodded slowly. At least that's honest. He turned to leave, then paused. Minty, whatever's going on, whatever you're looking for, just remember that Sadie and I love you. We want to work things out. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, my phone full of sweet messages from Eliot, and felt emptier than ever. 2 weeks later, we hosted a family barbecue that would become the beginning of the end. It was Graham's idea, a last-ditch attempt to bring normalcy back to our fractured household. His extended family was coming, along with my father and Jenna, plus several couple friends. I spent the morning in a strange mood, alternating between guilt and defiance. Eliot had been pulling back lately, claiming he needed to think about where this is going. His uncertainty made me desperate to prove my desirability, even if it meant being cruel to Graham. You're beautiful today, Graham said as I finished getting ready. He meant it. I could see the love and hope in his eyes. Thank you, I replied, but I was already planning my performance. The gathering started pleasantly enough. Graham manned the grill while I played hostess, making sure everyone had drinks and engaging in light conversation. But as the afternoon wore on and the wine flowed, I felt the familiar urge to be the center of attention. Oh, you have to hear about Graham's latest project, I announced during a lull in conversation. He's organizing our entire basement by category and subcategory. Color-coded labels and everything. A few people chuckled politely. Graham looked confused but not yet hurt. It's actually quite impressive, he said. Very efficient system. Efficient, I laughed. That's my husband. If there's a more methodical way to do something, Graham will find it. Remember our vacation planning spreadsheet, honey? Now Graham's smile was strained. You said you appreciated having everything organized. Oh, I did. 15 pages of restaurant reviews and museum hours. Very romantic. My father George jumped in, sensing entertainment. 15 pages? For a vacation? With backup options in case of rain, and a detailed budget breakdown, and a minute-by-minute itinerary for each day. I was warming up now, feeding off the attention. I felt like I was traveling with a very thorough tour guide. Jenna giggled. That's so Graham. Remember their wedding planning? He had charts for everything. The seating chart alone took him 3 weeks, I added. He actually made a mathematical model to optimize conversation compatibility. The laughter was getting louder, and Graham's face was getting redder. Mike shot me a warning look, but I was too caught up in my performance to care. And don't get me started on his idea of spontaneity, I continued. Last month he surprised me with dinner reservations, made them 3 weeks in advance, called to confirm twice, and brought printed directions even though we have GPS. Minty. Graham's voice was quiet, but I could hear the hurt underneath. What? I'm just sharing funny stories. Everyone knows you're wonderfully predictable. Predictable, echoed my father, shaking his head in amusement. Son, you need to live a little. Surprise your wife once in a while. Maybe take her somewhere exotic, suggested Jenna. Somewhere that's not in a guidebook. Or do something impulsive, I added, really twisting the knife now. Something that hasn't been researched and planned and scheduled months in advance. Graham stood up abruptly. Excuse me. As he walked toward the house, I felt a moment of unease, but then my father patted my shoulder. You're good for him, Minty. Keep him on his toes. Someone has to, I replied, though the words tasted bitter now. Mike followed Graham inside, and I knew I was going to get a lecture later, but I told myself I didn't care. Graham needed to hear these things. Maybe public embarrassment would motivate him to change. 15 minutes later, Mike returned alone. He sat down next to me, his expression serious. That was unnecessary, Minty. I was just having fun. Graham knows I love him. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to tear him down. That's ridiculous. I'm trying to help him see how boring he's become. By humiliating him in front of his family. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Eliot. Miss you. Wish I could be there instead of him. The message sent a thrill through me, validation that someone found me desirable and exciting. I quickly typed back, Miss you too. This is torture. Everything okay? Mike asked, noticing my distraction. Fine. Just work. But Mike's expression suggested he wasn't buying it. Minty, I've known Graham for 15 years. He's the most loyal, devoted man I've ever met. Whatever's going on with you two, don't throw away something good for something temporary. His words hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. Nothing's going on. We're just going through a rough patch. Rough patches don't require public humiliation. Before I could respond, we heard raised voices from inside the house. Through the window, I could see Graham and his mother, Judith, in what appeared to be an intense conversation. Maybe you should go check on your husband, Mike suggested coldly. I found Graham and Judith in the kitchen. Judith was speaking in low, urgent tones, while Graham leaned against the counter, looking defeated. Won't stand by and watch her destroy you, Judith was saying, or hurt Sadie. What's going on? I asked, though I suspected I knew. Judith turned to face me, her expression icy. I was just telling Graham that he deserves better than to be mocked by his own wife. I wasn't mocking him. I was just humiliating him, in front of people who love and respect him. Those were harmless stories. Everyone laughed. Everyone laughed at him, Minty. There's a difference. Graham finally spoke up. Mom, please, let us handle this. But Judith wasn't finished. No, Graham. Someone needs to say this. Minty, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but the way you've been treating my son is unacceptable. How I treat my husband is none of your business. It becomes my business when my granddaughter asks me why Mommy doesn't seem to like Daddy anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. Sadie didn't say that. She did. Last week, she wanted to know if you were getting divorced because you always seem angry when you look at her father. I felt the blood drain from my face. She's just confused. Children aren't as blind as adults like to think. Sadie sees everything. Graham pushed off from the counter. That's enough, both of you. But the damage was done. As we returned to the backyard, the party felt hollow and forced. People were starting to leave, making polite excuses about early mornings and prior commitments. Jenna lingered, pulling me aside as the last guest departed. Judith was pretty harsh, she said, but maybe she has a point. You too? I'm just saying, maybe tone it down a little. Graham's a good guy. A good, boring guy. Boring isn't the worst thing in the world, Minty, especially when it comes with loyalty and love. After everyone left, Graham and I cleaned up in silence. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, as we finished loading the dishwasher, he spoke. I can't do this anymore. My heart stopped. Do what? Pretend everything's normal. Pretend it doesn't hurt when you make me the punchline of every joke. Graham, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant every word. His voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. The question is why? Why do you need to tear me down to build yourself up? I didn't have an answer for that. At least, not one I was willing to give. I think, Graham continued, we need to seriously consider whether this marriage is working for either of us. The words hung in the air like a threat, but instead of fear, I felt something like relief. Maybe this was the opening I needed. Maybe Graham would make the decision I was too cowardly to make myself. Maybe you're right, I said quietly. Graham nodded, his expression unreadable. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. We can talk more tomorrow. As he walked away, I felt a strange mix of liberation and loss. I immediately texted Eliot. Can we talk? Things are complicated at home. His response came quickly. Maybe we should slow things down for a while. I don't want to get caught up in drama. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just as my marriage was crumbling, my affair was cooling off. I was about to lose everything, and for the first time, I wasn't sure it was what I wanted. The next few weeks passed in a strange limbo. Graham and I maintained a polite distance, coexisting in our house like cordial roommates. He'd moved permanently into the guest room, and we communicated mostly through notes about Sadie's schedule and household logistics. I threw myself into the affair with renewed desperation, but Eliot's enthusiasm had definitely waned. Our lunch dates became less frequent, and his texts were shorter, more cautious. I think we should be more careful, he said during one of our increasingly rare coffee meetings. People at work are starting to talk. Let them talk, I replied, though my stomach churned with anxiety. We're not doing anything wrong. Aren't we? His expression was serious. Minty, you're married. You have a child. This isn't just some casual thing. I know that, but my marriage is over anyway. Graham and I are just going through the motions. Are you getting divorced? The question hung between us. It was what I'd been hinting at for weeks, the promise I'd been making without saying the words. But the reality of divorce, lawyers, custody arrangements, splitting assets, explaining to Sadie, felt overwhelming. It's complicated, I said finally. Eliot leaned back in his chair, studying me. Minty, I care about you, but I'm not looking to be the reason someone's marriage falls apart. You're not the reason. You're just helping me realize what I'm missing. But even as I said it, I could see him pulling away. The excitement that had charged our early interactions was fading, replaced by awkwardness and guilt. At home, Graham had become a ghost of himself. He still took care of Sadie, still went to work, still maintained the household, but there was no joy in any of it. He moved through his days with mechanical precision, and I caught him staring into space more and more often. Sadie was struggling too. Her teacher called to express concern about her behavior in class. She was withdrawn, distracted, and had started crying at random moments. Is everything okay at home? Mrs. Peterson asked during a parent conference that only I attended. Graham had claimed a work conflict, though I suspected he just couldn't bear to sit next to me. We're going through some adjustments, I said carefully. Nothing major. Children are very sensitive to family stress. Mrs. Peterson continued. Sadie mentioned that Daddy seems sad and Mommy is always busy. She's worried that she did something wrong. The guilt was crushing, but I pushed it down. I'll talk to her. That evening, I found Sadie in her room, coloring with unusual intensity. Hey, sweetie, what are you drawing? A family, she said without looking up. But I can't get it right. I looked at the paper and saw 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a small child. But the woman figure was colored in angry red scribbles, and the man looked sad even in crayon form. Why can't you get it right? Because families are supposed to be happy, but ours isn't. The simple statement broke something inside me. Sadie, honey, Mommy, and Daddy are just working through some grown-up problems. It has nothing to do with you. Are you getting divorced like Tommy's parents? I hadn't realized she even knew what divorce meant. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. Would that scare you? She nodded, tears welling up. I don't want Daddy to move away. Daddy would never move away from you. No matter what happens between Mommy and Daddy, we both love you very much. But my reassurances felt hollow. The truth was, I had no idea what would happen. I was drifting through my life, making decisions based on momentary feelings rather than long-term consequences. That night, I lay in my empty bed and tried to imagine my future. Divorced, possibly sharing custody of Sadie, starting over at 32. The fantasy of running away with Eliot had evaporated. He'd made it clear that he wasn't interested in being my escape plan. So what did I want? The question that should have been simple felt impossibly complex. My phone rang, interrupting my spiral of self-doubt. It was Jenna. How are you holding up? She asked. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Minty, Dad told me about the barbecue, and I heard through the grapevine that you and Graham are having problems. What grapevine? Mike called Marcus. He's worried about Graham. The fact that our problems were becoming public knowledge made everything feel more real, more serious. We're just figuring things out, I said. Are you having an affair? The direct question caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? Because you've been acting strange for months. You're always checking your phone, you're never home, and you've been treating Graham like dirt. Either you're having an affair, or you've had some kind of personality transplant. I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, I found myself telling the truth. It's not serious, just someone from work. It's probably over anyway. Jenna was quiet for a long moment. Minty, what are you doing? I don't know, I admitted. I just felt so trapped, so bored. Graham is a good man, but he's not exciting. Exciting doesn't pay the bills or raise children or stick around when things get hard. I know that. But I'm 32 years old, Jenna. Is this it? Is this all there is? There's worse things than being married to a man who adores you. Easy for you to say. You're not married to him. No, but I've seen how he looks at you. Like you hung the moon. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I did know. That was part of the problem. Graham's unwavering devotion had started to feel suffocating rather than romantic. What should I do? I asked. End it. Whatever's going on with this other guy, end it. Figure out your marriage without outside complications. And if I can't, if Graham and I are just too different, then get divorced, but do it honestly, not because you're chasing some fantasy with another man. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness and tried to imagine coming clean to Graham, telling him about Eliot, about the lies, about the months of deception. The thought made me physically ill, but the alternative, continuing this half-life, this limbo of lies and guilt, felt equally impossible. The next morning, I made a decision. I would end things with Eliot, focus on my marriage, and see if Graham and I could find our way back to each other. I never got the chance. That evening, as I was getting ready to leave work, I found an envelope on my desk with my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside were printouts of photos, me and Eliot at various restaurants, holding hands across tables, kissing in his car. There was no note, No explanation, just evidence of my betrayal, captured in stark black and white. My hands shook as I looked through the images. Someone had been following us, documenting our affair. But who? And what did they plan to do with the photos? I called Eliot immediately. We need to talk, now. We met in the parking garage, where we'd shared so many stolen moments. But this time, the atmosphere was charged with panic rather than passion. Someone's been watching us, I said, showing him the photos. His face went pale. Jesus, Minty, who would do this? I don't know, but they left these on my desk, at work. This is bad, really bad. He ran his hands through his hair. I can't afford a scandal. My career, my reputation. What about my marriage, my family? I'm sorry, but I have to protect myself. We need to end this, completely. Eliot, wait. No, I should never have let it go this far. You're married, for God's sake. I'm not going to be responsible for destroying your family. He walked away, leaving me alone with the photos and the growing realization that my carefully constructed lies were about to come crashing down. When I got home, Graham was in the kitchen making dinner for Sadie. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. We need to talk, he said quietly, after Sadie goes to bed. I spent the evening in a state of barely controlled panic. Did he know? Had he seen the photos? Was he the one who'd left them on my desk? The questions tormented me through dinner, through Sadie's bath time, through the bedtime story. I couldn't concentrate on reading. Finally, when Sadie was asleep, Graham and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table, like adversaries preparing for battle. I know about Eliot, he said simply. The words hit like a physical blow. Graham, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why my wife has been lying to me for months? Can you explain why you've been making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong? I opened my mouth, but no words came. What explanation could possibly justify what I'd done? How long? He asked. It's not what you think. How long, Minty? 3 months. But it's over. It ended tonight. Graham laughed, but there was no humor in it. It ended because you got caught. No, I was already planning to end it. I realized I made a mistake. A 3-month mistake. A mistake that involved lying to me every single day, making me feel like I was losing my mind, humiliating me in front of our friends and family. I had never seen Graham angry before, really angry. It was terrifying and somehow magnificent at the same time. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I'm sorry I hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far. But you meant for it to go somewhere. You made a choice, Minty. Every day for 3 months you chose him over me, over us, over Sadie. The mention of our daughter made me flinch. Sadie doesn't know. Sadie knows something's wrong. She's been asking me if Mommy still loves us. The guilt was overwhelming now, crushing me under its weight. Of course I love you. Both of you. Do you? Because love isn't just a feeling, Minty. It's a choice. It's a commitment. And you chose to break that commitment. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to shift the blame somehow. But looking at Graham's face, the pain, the betrayal, the disappointment, I couldn't find the words. What happens now? I asked. Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and calm. Now I decide whether I can ever trust you again, whether our marriage can survive this, whether I want it to. Graham, please, we can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes. Will you? Because whatever it takes means complete honesty. It means transparency. It means rebuilding trust from the ground up. Are you prepared for that? I nodded eagerly, though I wasn't sure what it would actually entail. We'll see, Graham said. But Minty, if I find out you've lied to me about anything else, anything at all, we're done. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. But as I lay in bed that night, I realized I didn't understand anything at all. I didn't understand how I'd gotten to this point, or what I really wanted, or whether my marriage could be saved. All I knew was that the fantasy was over, and reality was much harsher than I'd expected. I thought I had time to fix things. I was wrong. 3 days later, Graham handed me divorce papers over breakfast. "What is this?" "Divorce papers. I filed for dissolution, citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. We agreed to work on things." "No, you asked. I said I'd think about it. I have." Sadie was at the table listening. His timing was deliberate. "Daddy, are you getting divorced?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart." "Is it because Mommy has a boyfriend?" My breath caught. Graham's voice stayed calm. "Mummy made choices that hurt our family." After Sadie left, I protested. Graham was unmoved. "I've documented everything. Photos, bank records, texts. Someone sent me proof. You're the one who left those photos on my desk. I wanted to see what you'd do. You lied for 3 more days." He'd changed the locks, consulted lawyers, built an airtight case while I thought I was getting away with continued deception. My marriage was over, and I had broken it.